Okay, good evening, everybody. Hope you're all doing well tonight. Well done for coming out. I can give a lot of credit to the pizza for that. Shui's idea to have different interesting food items. So credit to Shui for that. We are so basically for those. So my name is Isaac. Isaac Ansel Forsyth. For those of us who haven't met before, most of us have worked out. I'm from Scotland by now, originally based here in Jerusalem. And we do a shir here on Sunday nights and a few other interesting things around. Do some stuff in yeshivas and seminaries, do some stuff in a high-tech company. We're trying to kind of get certain interesting things around there. And the particular topic or the general topic, let's say, of what we try and do here is we basically try and take a bit of a deeper look at issues that some of us are dealing with either in our day-to-day lives, or they are fundamental questions of faith, or for one reason or another, there's something which is pretty important, but there are often perspectives on those which are a little bit less well known, maybe a little bit on the deeper side, and we try and see what we can do to understand those sources and see what they can do to help us enhance our understanding of ourselves, our understanding of the world, our understanding of Hashem, etc. So in our shiur tonight, we are discussing what's nature's signature in the human soul. So we'll get into what that means in a minute. And the shiur is sponsored tonight by my mum, Jane Ansell, in memory of my brother, Andrew. We can speak more about that. We've already had a little bit of a conversation together, but we can speak more about him. But may the shiur be a zchut for him, and may his neshama have an aliyah. Okay, so this is the topic for tonight. So earth, fire, water, and air. These are concepts. They're called in I think in just philosophy in general. They're called the something elements. They're called the basic elements. So yeah. But you'll find it in Aristotle, and you'll find it in other writings, even outside Judaism as well. So it's an idea which is kind of universal. You'll find that inside Judaism we don't necessarily have exactly the same take on them as you'll find around the world. So it's even if you're familiar, I wasn't really familiar with these ideas before, but even if you're familiar with the ideas, then it's worth nevertheless staying tuned, because there could still be more to learn about them, more to discover, and particularly these things with reference to ourselves and how we can see these things inside ourselves and how we can use those to work in our lives.
There's actually a fact of this on the promenade in front of Yemim Moshe.
Really?
Of these the four elements here.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, if you walk along the it's like a little PLF, like with windmills. If you keep going down, you'll see there's actually they have a plaque for this.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, it's very interesting. So I hadn't also come across it. So you'll see various depictions. I've got one decent one of Google up there, but there's other ones too. So in terms of these already, before anything, does anyone know? Okay, so there's this idea that in the world there are these four basic elements, that everything in the world is made up of these four things. It's true, certainly in either a philosophical or maybe a certain metaphysical sense. Obviously, you don't actually look at any particular thing and find that there's fire in this and water in this as such, but you'll find that the concepts are nevertheless prevalent and present around the world, and specifically inside ourselves. So what do you think, before we would even go any further, let's just talk in terms of ourselves. So what do you think it would mean to have any of these elements inside ourselves? We're going to look at a particular source today, which will have a particular take on it. But what do you think it would mean? So to have fire inside yourself, to have water inside yourself, any takers? What could it mean to have any one of those elements or all of those elements inside you? Yeah, let's start with that.
I really relate to that kind of thing. If you have a fire, you have like a very proactive, very dynamic kind of nature.
Mm-hmm.
Water, it's more flowing. Like you kind of think the characteristics of the element, and then kind of see how that relates to how you act, I guess, or how you relate to things.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. So you can, in terms of like personality, let's say, like character. So you can have, which is the examples of fire. You're saying was like going out there, like passionate kind of thing, and then water, more easygoing, more flowing. So you can imagine how these things, even if they're not going to translate into necessarily like the same elements as we have in the periodical table, they're going to translate into concepts which are relevant for ourselves in our day-to-day life. So yeah, 100%. Anyone else? Any thoughts on how they could relate to us?
The zodiac. presumably have water signs and fire signs.
Yeah, I actually know less about. I mean, do you want to say anything? I know less about the zodiac. Yeah.
I just know that these.
Maybe we'll have to share this sometimes. It's very interesting. Yeah. Yeah. So
Months are divided. So
what's it again there?
the months are divided into the four elements. There's like three or I forgot, 3 or 4 months have one element, 3 or 4 months have another.
So they're grouped together like
Yeah.
a few. Interesting. Do you know? Surely we're in fire right now, right? Is that the? It seems well, the weather seems to imply that we're in some kind of fire time.
August.
No, Tammuz is water, and Av is fire.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Anyone?
Pisces is other,
Ah.
which is Dagim, which is
Right. Right. Yeah. So it'll fit together. Okay. So I didn't know. So they were also mentioning in terms of the year, the zodiac signs, and just the year in general, the Jewish year, it's broken up into different groups of months, and even these groups of months, I didn't know this, relate to these 4 elements. So you have certain parts of the year which are relating to water, certain parts of the year which are relating to fire, etc. You want to mention?
Just the balance. I assume that part of it is about how they balance each other in our bodies.
Yeah, great point. So also in terms of what we've focused so far on thinking about, like, what does this element look like in you? What does this element look like in you? But the truth is we have all of these elements in us, and there's such a thing as a balance. Actually, Brian and I had a bit of a back and forth about balance and what it means, and he was telling me from some music concepts to help me understand balance a little bit better. But certainly balance is something which would be you would want to have equilibrium, something that you would want to have inside yourself. Okay, so with that, let's have a little bit of a look at what the Tanya has to say about these elements. So the Tanya is a sefer most people are possibly familiar with, but I wasn't so familiar myself, so I'll just give an introduction for my own sake. The Tanya was written by the first Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Shneur Zalman of Liadi, right? Good. Yeah, I always get that mixed up. So he was already kind of verging on a couple of hundred years ago. And he wrote one of the most amazing Sfarim of all time. He wrote tons of stuff, obviously, but he wrote one of the most amazing Sfarim of all time, which kind of took he writes in his introduction, he basically says, people always coming and ask me questions about faith and the world and life and everything. So I just wrote you a whole book, and you don't need he writes in the introduction, you don't need to ask me any questions anymore, just read the book and you'll know. So basically, he is giving what he would consider to be a methodical walkthrough of all the things that one needs to know in life. So in this year, we take different sources from here and there. So this particular one, we're using the Tanya as our jumping off points, and we'll go from there. Okay, so if you see in this source here, I've just boldened. I've given you more if you want to look at a bit of context either side, but I've just boldened where he jumps right into how these 4 elements relate to our character, and in particular, how they relate to certain character challenges that we have. So there's also positive versions of these as well, and there's neutral versions, there's all different kinds of things. But there are, first and foremost, challenges which come from these elements inside itself. And if you're able, that kind of thing, if you're able to understand what's going on inside yourself, then you may well be able to deal with them more. So let's have a little look about what he said. So if you go there to the middle there, I'm just going to read from Ka'as, just right in the middle. So it says, Ka'as v'ga'ava miyesod ha'esh, shenad v'lamava. So there are 2 kind of negative personality characteristics, anger and arrogance. And those things come from the fire inside oneself. So if a person has, let's say, or even just in the moment, so they have feeling very angry. The truth is that this one makes almost the most sense to me, because I don't know if you ever felt anger. I'm sure no one here has felt anger, but if you felt anger, you kind of feel like you're on fire. I don't know if you ever felt that. You feel like physically you're warming up, which is so I don't know. So I certainly felt that. So the fire inside yourself is something which is getting going if there's something anger. In terms of ga'ava as well, which is arrogance, which is placing yourself above others. So arrogance relates to anger, partly because of just that thing alone. He says it goes up, and fire is something which goes up naturally, in contrast to the other things, they don't naturally go up. But also fire is something that destroys. And that's what a person with arrogance will often do. They'll often character assassinate and things like that in order to maintain their own esteem. They'll kind of put others down. So that's also the relationship between fire and arrogance. So you see, anger and arrogance are kind of going together a little bit there. And they say, so I heard people say, it kind of makes a lot of sense that if you weren't arrogant, you wouldn't really get angry. Because that kind of makes a bit of sense. Because like if you like, why would I get angry? I get angry because someone slighted me. It's like if I just know, like, okay, like I'm just a normal guy, like people's, that's what happens. So if you had like a bit more humility, then maybe you just like wouldn't get so angry all the time. So you can sometimes see that those go together. So either way, so he's saying, so we're thinking about these elements inside ourselves, and the first one is fire, and the particular challenges that gives us is ka'as v'ga'ava, is anger and arrogance. So that's one. By the way, we're interactive as well, so people can shout out and ask questions, everything at all times. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Let's move on to water. So it says v'ta'avot hata'anugim miyasod hamay. So from water comes what's he called ta'avat hata'anugim, is like the desire for physical pleasures. So if someone's really enjoying physicality, they're really enjoying they're like let's say overindulging maybe, or they have like a particular pull, like really, really, really strong pull towards I mean it's not relevant to the pizza, of course, but let's say they're like really well, yeah, I'll tell you, so I was speaking to someone yesterday. I say what's called tavat achila, what's called like really strong desire for eating. So he said is when you it's when you take a picture of your food and put it on Instagram. That's what he said. So I don't know. I don't have Instagram, so I can't really talk on that point. But there's something called a healthy engagement with physical pleasure. There's something called it's already verging on the unhealthy engagement. Yeah, gluttony basically, or they go even lust in a certain sense. So that's something which is coming from water. Why would that relate to water? It says ki hamayim matzmichim kol minei ta'anug. Because water causes all different kinds of things which relate to pleasure to grow. So we know that water relates to life. We like to think water is like a good thing, and it is obviously a good thing as well. But the negative element of water would come out here, because if you think of life comes from water, and all of the things which we basically, essentially like food and let's say intimacy related things, like those are things which create life. And those are things which people can have unhealthy relationships to. And that's kind of called like lust already, or that's called like an unhealthy desire or something like that. So that's in that sense, water is in and of itself a neutral and also a good thing, but in terms of its negative challenge that it brings with it, so it would involve this kind of overindulgence, or like a desire, strong desire to overindulge there. So that's in terms of the water. So we got yeah.
Why is he relating at the outset to the negative aspects as opposed to the positive?
Yeah, so that was part of the context which we didn't, which I skipped at the start. So thanks for bringing that up. The question was, why are we just jumping to the negative aspects over here, or the challenge aspects? So the context is he's mentioning that the way that in his terms, come in, there's a seat over here. In the terminology of the Tanya, he says that we have two souls. We have two souls. We have what's called a nefesh bahamit and a nefesh elokit, animal soul and a godly soul. We all have these. We all have both of these things. So that's in our terminology, we can say within our spirituality, we have lower elements and higher elements. It's spirituality. It's something which is not a part of your physical body, but you nevertheless have lower elements and higher elements of that. And you have even parts of your spirituality which are kind of inclined downwards, as it were, towards the physical, and you have parts of your spirituality which are inclined upwards towards the spiritual. So the context of his discussion here is relating to the nefesh bahamit, is the part of your spirituality which, even though it's spiritual, but it nevertheless can have an unhealthy relationship with the physical world. So that's why. The thing is, he doesn't really do the opposite in a very thorough way. I mean, I'm sure he knows. If you see at the end, he says, and it also relates to the positive, and etc. But he doesn't really speak it out. So I wanted to use the source which he kind of elaborated on it more. But we can maybe just in merit of that question, we'll just bring in a couple of things along the way. Just for example, so the positive thing which relates to fire is strength in a good sense. So it's gevura, basically. It's the meat of gevura. So strength in a good sense. So there's a time and a place that it's good to be strong, and it's good to be especially internally strong and self-controlled and things like that. So that would be the good version of fire. The good version of water is chesed. which is like your giving to others and kindness to others. And you can see also there, like if a person is like going with the flow and they're happy to give, so then that's going to relate to water. They're like fluids with their, let's say if they like to give charity, they're fluid with their assets. They're fine to, that they should give. So that's also the positive element there as well. So if a person's finding, we'll just say it just as a teaser, if a person's finding that, actually, I have a bit of an anger challenge, or actually find myself that I have like a big strength, like a strength, a positive characteristic of being able to be strong at the right time. So they might find themselves a bit more relating to the Yesod of Eish, the foundation of fire, the element of fire. And then if a person, on the other hand, is maybe struggling on the one hand with physical, like overdoing physical desires, but also has like maybe a strong chesed inclination, a strong inclination to do kindness for others. So they may be someone who's a bit more relating to water. So that's the first two so far. Then we move on to ruach, so of air or wind. So let's see what he says. So he says v'hololutz, v'leitzanutz, v'yitzparutz, u'devarim betelim yesod haruach. So there's a few different things which relate to ruach, which relate to wind. He says hololutz, which is like these hololutz and leitzanutz are similar. I don't really know the difference. One is like they say like it's different versions of not taking things seriously. Like they say scoffing. I don't really know what that means, but it means like not taking things seriously. Hololutz is similar. I don't know if anyone knows the difference between those. It's just, but again, like going around just like not taking anything seriously. V'yitzparut is like boasting, also like overdoing yourself. Devarim betelim, just like chatting for like absolutely nothing, like no at all benefit. Just like you can't stop talking for like, and there's absolutely no benefit from it. So that's all coming from ruach. So those are the negative elements of ruach. Or the challenges which come from those. So it's interesting. I don't know if you've ever heard of this idea that someone is like full of air. So it's kind of like that, basically. So I just give you an example. I mean, obviously without names, but there was a person who, it was amazing. Like I don't know if he knew he was doing this or not. I don't think he did, but he was quite good at speaking, like public speaking. He was a rabbi, whatever. He was a rabbi. He was quite good at public speaking. He gave the impression that he gave a really good sermon or Dvar Torah or something like that. But if you actually then like just I just like noticed this one time, you actually like think about it after, like what did he say? He didn't say anything. Have you ever like had this experience? Like it was just like a story and a joke, and like there was like nothing, and then like a line at the end which actually didn't relate to anything. But it sounded really good, so it's quite interesting. So again, I'm not saying this person was doing it on purpose, but that seems to be that's like there wasn't substance in the way that he would speak. So that might be someone who's relating a bit more to ruach, having that challenge, at least in that sense. And as an aside, the kind of positive or the midah which relates to ruach, by the way, I don't know if anyone knows, is tiferet. So tiferet is like harmony. So that's the balance. It's quite interesting, actually. It's like the balance between the strength on the one hand and the chesed, the kindness on the other hand. To have this balance is actually relating to air. So that's balanced, obviously a good thing in many ways, as was brought up at the start. Yeah, we have a question on this.
Can I ask something? Because I've always thought that it's a positive that something that maybe goes to excess or can be bad can actually be the opposite too, can always be turned on its head and be
Great.
positive. How does that affect the fact that there's two souls? Because I've never known that.
Yeah, amazing question. I think we will. That's basically, I'll just give the Zoom scroll. That's the next part of this year, basically.
Okay.
So you've given us an introduction, but just one more line, and then we're ready for that part of this year. It's basically how to think about that, even in negative, even the negative itself, you can use for the positive. So we were talking about like there's a positive version and a negative version. But even the negative version you can kind of hijack and use for the positive. So we'll come back to that, and that'll relate to the soul thing as well. Okay, so we've got so far we've got fire, which is like anger, arrogance. You've got water, which is like overindulgence or ta'avat ta'anugim, like having a strong desire or lust for like overdoing it in that sense. You have ruach, you have wind, which is like having no substance, basically, like not taking things seriously also. And then, right, so what's the last one? So it's a kind of interesting, hard-hitting one. So he said, which is, now we're talking about earth or afar. So he says, va'atzlut va'atzvut miyasada afar. And laziness and depression, so they come from this element of earth inside you. So I don't know. So I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on that. I think I can like totally get that. Because I put it this, what is the main thing that people who have depression tell you is you can't get out of bed. There's a heaviness, and that is the afa. So in the positive, by the way, there's like a groundedness, which is a good thing to do, to not just be like up in the air, but to be able to have a groundedness and bring things. But in the challenge sense, to relate to afar, is to have a challenge with, let's say, obviously there's laziness, which is maybe a bit more someone's choice, or they're just not inclined to be a go-getter in that sense. But depression, I don't know if you can, share or not share if you want, but this is a very, very common, maybe the most common thing in terms of depression. Is just the ability, it's not just sadness. It's like I can't do stuff. So yeah. Anyway, so that's the earth thing.
Did you tell everybody you're a master's in psychology?
Yes, I'm a master's in psychology. We didn't discuss this in psychology. We did discuss depression in psychology a lot. We didn't really discuss the other one so much. Quite interesting. Also relates to values anyway. Yeah. So these are the four things, and these are their challenges. We also discussed a little bit, and we'll discuss more in terms of positive elements soon. But these are the challenges which relate to these things. So we have fire. Let's do a quiz again. So we have fire is anyone? Fire is
Anger.
Anger and arrogance, right? And then water is desire, like overly strong desires for physical pleasures, let's say. And then ruach, what's called wind, is
lack of substance.
Yeah, lack of substance. And then finally, as we just said, afar, earth is depression and laziness. Yeah. So as I say, we're gonna give a couple of positive twists, foods for thought on this in a minute. But before that, what do you think about this? What do people think about this idea? Something people come across before, not come across before? I'll give you a challenge. Does anyone, you can at least think of the challenge, but does anyone feel that they have a particular affinity to one of the areas in the positive or in the challenge area? Do you feel that you have an affinity to one of those, that one of those is maybe particularly hard for you, or, we mentioned some of the positives as well. One of those is a particular strength for you. I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on that.
We're more related to vibe, like I struggle with, especially at work, like short-temperedness, especially with customers.
Oh, really? Interesting. Aaron is a cook, and so there's probably quite a lot of sayings about like the heat in the kitchen and things like that. Yeah. And wait, you working at again? What's the name of the place? Crave, right. So I think there's some. Yeah, there you go. It's just a shout out.
Today's menu.
Yeah, oh my gosh, yeah. But yeah, Aaron was just saying in terms of possibly relating to fire, because in terms of like it's a challenge at work often to like keep this balance in the face of, I think customers would be very hard to. I wouldn't like to be on the other end of
It's not so much at the customers, just everything combined. Because I'm in the middle of the restaurant, I have to like be mindful to keep my cool because everyone's watching.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah, anyone else have any thoughts themselves?
So it's a challenge for me not to indulge in too much lamb bacon. It's really good to a certain point also.
Yeah, it's very good.
Yeah, so that's the water inside of you, the love of the physical desires. I'd say I can't work out the answer for this for me, because I think the point is, this is like the challenge side of the balance, is that we all have all of these in us, right? So like we should all by rights be able to relate to all of these. So it's like I was learning this with our friend ages ago, and he was just like, yes. That's all of them. So I think we can identify with that. So I never know for myself. I think my main one is afar. I think, meaning the challenge of earth, of like sometimes I don't know, because like I'm usually quite a bubbly person, but like when it gets hard, it gets really hard. So I don't So I don't know if that means that I have an affinity to that, or just when that comes along, it's something which is very strong. So I don't know.
Like they say, I mean, 23, it's not the individual items, but it's really the way that they're balanced and the way they relate, each one
Yeah.
relates to the other. I mean, you have before, and it's the question of how they're interacting, within you, that's really making who you, the person
Right.
who you are. Now, which one is the more dominant per se?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I think these are all elements. It's like we'll go back to cooking again. They're like ingredients, basically. They're all ingredients in every one of us. They're all ingredients. But you could have it doesn't necessarily have to be that way, but you could find that a person is inclined towards one. They're maybe like heavily weighted towards one more than the other. You don't have to find it that way, but I'm just curious if people find that. And yeah, so just like food for thought. You can have a look. I've been thinking about this for ages. I still can't quite get to the bottom of it. That's my main theory at this moment. So we'll see. So with that, I want to leave people on a few thoughts of what we can do with this. So there's the general. So if just the last 3 points at the bottom of the page here, and yeah, people can see what they choose to do with this. So this is, of course, the as we mentioned a bit the positives along the way, but essentially we're talking about challenges that we have. So so what's the point in talking about something like this? So I thought of a few things. You could think about other things as well. So I thought, so number one, just moving from left to right, is just in terms of self-knowledge. I put the picture of the heart there because at least metaphysically, they say that these are all in the heart. The midot are in the heart, and these are maybe more in the left side, and there's also different things in the right side. So, but either way, take it or leave it. But the point is just knowing about yourself is like quite a helpful thing, just in general, just to be in touch with oneself. I asked, I was giving a shiur in a seminary. I asked them, like, how is it to have a relationship with a person who doesn't know themselves? They're like not in touch with themselves. It's like so it's hard. It's not like such an amazing relationship to have. It's like when the other person on the other end doesn't even really know themselves, like it's not so easy. So I think even just to be people who are like a little bit more aware of ourselves is certainly doing a favor to others as well, and just in addition to just being an interesting thing to learn about oneself. In terms of so then these next two are my analogies. No one ever said this is not the Tanya anymore. Okay, no, I'm not going to blame anything else in the shiur on the Tanya. So I put spiritual boxing and spiritual judo. So what on earth am I trying to get at? So spiritual boxing, what I mean to say is, if you know what your challenges are, then you can know how to combat them. So if I know already that, if I don't know myself and then I just find myself kind of like walking through life and experiencing challenges, then it's quite hard to know what to do. But if I already am able to identify them a bit more, that's like the first stage. Then you can start to do something about it, and you can even start to counteract it. So, for example, again, I'm not getting into clinical level stuff, but just on a light level, let's say someone's feeling a bit down one day, so then you're relating a little bit more to Afar, maybe in a negative way that day to Earth. So then the way that you fight that is with the opposite. So you fight that with simcha, and even to the extent of leitzanut, actually, to actually like have a laugh, and etc. etc. You're not going to go through every single one, but just to the idea that if you know, it's like know your enemy, right? So like if you know what you're up against, then you can know like what kind of tactics to use.
Which sign is simcha?
So simcha is like a positive version of ruach. It's interesting because I didn't really mention, but basically each two is opposite of another two, meaning Afar and Ruach are opposites of each other, or like that. Let's say Earth and Wind are opposites of each other, and Fire and Water are opposites of each other. So if you're finding yourself, this goes back to the balance in some ways. If you're finding yourself inclined to one, then you might choose to go to the other to fight it. So, for example, you're feeling down or even lazy to like have a pick-me-up in terms of a bit of joy or even a bit of laughter, like even leitzanut, even a joke, like a nonsensical thing. Like Breslov are into this, I think, actually, that to even just do something which is stupid, like silly, but it can break you out of a certain habit. Again, clinical stuff was longer term, but I'm just talking about short term stuff over here. So you kind of like fight with the opposite, and then water and fire as well. That's a way you can do that if you're like feeling fired up in a maybe not such a positive way. So like that's the way to like be the water and like just kind of flow a little bit and allow yourself to to mellow, and then that's part of it. But so that's the one way, it's the normal way I think that we typically do things in life. If we have a challenge, then we fight against it. And that's certainly a very valid and an important tool that we must have. But finally, there's what I called spiritual judo. I must be honest, I never did judo. Actually, I did do judo. I actually quit after one session because I thought I was like, very young and I thought there was going to be more fighting. Like I just thought it was fighting. So I was much. Yeah, but yeah, anyway, so I tried, but I didn't realize that you actually were like, you had to warm up and you had to like, I was quite young and I was just like so disappointed. I thought it was just fighting. So, okay, but anyway, but apparently, basically in judo, how it works is that one of the main things that you do is you use your opponent's weight against them. Meaning, it's not so much just about fighting back against, it's actually about using the force which is coming against you and actually turning that around to use that exact thing to your benefit. So this relates to what we were mentioning on the Zoom before in terms of hijacking. So even though this is coming from a lower element of your soul, Nefesh Bahamid, whatever you want to say, but there's ways to use even that for the positive. So just as an example, so it's interesting to think about how to do this, but let's say a person is, let's say, inclined towards kind of physical desires or something like that. So, for example, to channel that into a realm of Kedusha, so to say, like, to have like a really, really nice, like to save up and have like a really nice, like Shabbos meal or something like that, which of the stuff that you really, really enjoy. So then all of a sudden you're using that negative thing for a mitzvah. And then you found an outlet for the negative. But you're using it for a positive reason. You've kind of hijacked the Yetzer Hara, basically. You've hijacked the Nefesh Bahamid to use it for the good. And you can do that with all different kinds of things in terms of being fiery. I don't know exactly how this works, but this seems to be the idea in a Gemara where it's in Sukkah, where it says that if the Yetzer Hara is getting to you, so it says, bring it to the Beis Medrash. So the simple understanding is that means, oh, like learn Torah and like it's gonna tell you what you're doing is wrong. But it seems to more mean something a bit deeper, which is that you're going to use the Yetzer Hara in your learning. So there's different ways to do that. You can have food for thought about how to do that. Of course, the dream is to just do things always for the right reasons. But sometimes you've got a challenge, and sometimes the way to deal with that challenge is to fight against it, and sometimes it's to kind of hijack it and use it for your own purposes. So that's the food for thought. So that's really for us to really go away and contemplate. So we've got a few things to go away and contemplate. One is in terms of the just self-knowledge in general, of seeing, maybe having a think about when these kinds of things are coming up for us in the course of the week, be it the positives or the negatives, and just being a bit more aware of like what's going on inside ourselves. A second thing is in terms of if we're having a challenge and we want to know what to do, so we can start to have an idea what to do in terms of either fighting against it by kind of going to the opposite extreme, maybe a bit that's more like a Rambam kind of thing, or sometimes you can like hijack that to use that exact thing for the good. I don't know if I see you're off mute there. Did you want to mention something? So I had yeah.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, no. So I was just thinking now. Actually, I was at this. So the year it was sponsored in honor of my brother, who passed away 5 years ago. So I just thought this now. I didn't really. This year wasn't planned to relate to him. I just thought there was one of the things. The truth is, my mum started an education project for special needs adults. He had special needs, learning disabilities. And one of the things, like the specialities of that project, is that it would take some people with autism or other things, that they had certain things which were like challenges for them, obsessions, which were like not always good. Like one guy, I remember, he used to like to smash stuff. He likes to smash stuff. He likes to smash cups, so he'd always smash the cups in the sink. So what they got him to do is they got him to do the glass recycling. So then he used that exact thing, which was otherwise being used for a negative, for a positive. And also my brother is that he was similar but different. It's funny, recycling's always the answer. He liked to host things. So he used to, if you like books or whatever, he always like go like down the back of the radiator. You'd find like loads of books. It's like, anyway, things like that. So again, recycling ended up being the answer. So he ended up doing the recycling where you post the things in the correct bins. But there's this idea out there of even if something is a challenge, or at least apparently is moving you in a negative direction, even that exact thing you can channel for the positive as well. Yeah. So that is the
Yeah. Actually,
thought for the day. Yeah.
you more or less said what I was going to say, but all I wanted to add was that Andrew Alversholm made it taught people this really clearly. So even if you didn't know it already, how to turn something around, that you learned it very quickly.
Yeah, the lesson came also in that direction. So, okay, cool. Okay, so so this is our shear. I'm just gonna